by the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary, one with Luisa, the little daughter of the divine will, I enter into the holy divine will. Come, divine will, come beat in my every heartbeat, come breathe in my every breath, come pray, adore, and reign in me, in the name of everyone and everything, past, present, and future. In, with, through, and for Jesus, Mary, and Luisa. In, with, and for all, that all may be for the glory of God and the good of all souls, giving to God as if all lived in the most holy divine will, united with creation, redemption, and sanctification, praying as one in that one eternal act, for the kingdom to come, reign on earth. Fiat. Book of Heaven, Volume 4, Part 12. February 8th, 1902. Meanings of the Passion of Jesus. This morning on coming, my adorable Jesus shared with me part of his passion. Now, while I was in suffering, in order to cheer me, the Lord told me, "My daughter, the first meaning of the Passion contains glory, praise, honor, thanksgiving, reparation to the divinity. The second is the salvation of souls and all the graces which are needed to obtain this purpose. So for one who participates in the pains of my passion, her life contains these same meanings within itself. Not only this, but she takes the same form as my humanity. And since my humanity is united with the divinity, the soul who participates in my pains is also in contact with the divinity and can obtain whatever she wants. Even more, her pains are like keys to open the divine treasures. This for as long as she lives down here, and then a distinct glory is also reserved for her above the heavens, which is given to her by my humanity and divinity, in such a way as to resemble my very light and glory, as well as a more special glory for the whole celestial court, which will be given to it through this soul, because of what I have communicated to her. In fact, the more the souls have become like me in the pains, the more light and glory will come out from within the divinity. And here is how the whole celestial court participates in this glory. May the Lord be always blessed, and may everything be for his glory and honor. February 9th, 1902. Jesus places himself at the soul's disposal. Luisa asks for the miracle of not allowing divorce to be confirmed. This morning on coming, my most sweet Jesus shared his pains with me in abundance, so much so that I felt as if I were about to die. Now, while I was feeling myself in this state, blessed Jesus, moved and touched in seeing me suffer, placed himself in my interior and folding his arms said to me, "My daughter, just as you have been at my disposal in suffering, so do I place myself at your disposal to repay you. Tell me what you want me to do, for I am ready to do what you want." And I, remembering how grieved he would be if men should confirm the law of divorce, as well as the evils that would come from it to society, said to him, "My sweet good, since you deign to place yourself at my disposal, I want you to operate a prodigy with your omnipotence, that the will of creatures be chained so that they may not be able to confirm this law." The Lord seemed to accept my proposal, telling me, "Almost all the victims who have been on earth and who are now in heaven possess some most refulgent stars on their crowns, which allow them to be distinguished well for the place they occupy. These stars are nothing other than some great glory which they have procured for God, as well as a great good for humanity through them. You want me to operate a prodigy so that this divorce may not be confirmed. Otherwise, this may not happen. Well then, for love of you, I will make this prodigy, and this will be the most refulgent star that will shine on your crown. That is, having prevented my justice through your sufferings, after the so many wicked deeds they commit, from permitting also this evil in these sad times, which they themselves have wanted. So can greater glory be given to God, and greater good to men? February 17th, 1902. Jesus explains what death is. This morning, after much waiting, finally I found my most sweet Jesus, and lamenting to him I said, "My beloved good, how can you make me wait so long? Do you perhaps not know that without you I cannot live, and my soul experiences a continuous dying?" And he, "My beloved, every time you look for me, you dispose yourself to dying, because in truth, what is death, if not the stable and permanent union with me? Such was my life, a continuous dying for love of you, and this continuous death was the preparation for the great sacrifice of dying on the cross for you. Know that one who lives in my humanity and nourishes himself from the works of my humanity forms of himself a great tree, filled with abundant flowers and fruits, and these form the nourishment of God and of the soul. For one who lives outside of my humanity, then, his works are odious to God and unfruitful for himself." After this, the Lord poured abundantly into me, mixed, both bitternesses and sweetnesses. Then we went round a little in the midst of people, but I could not remove my gaze from the face of my beloved Jesus. On seeing this, he told me, "My daughter, one who lets himself be enticed by the works of the Creator leaves the work of creatures suspended." He disappeared, and I found myself inside myself. February 19th, 1902. The soul is like a canvas which receives the portrait of the divine image. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus made himself seen in my interior, sleeping, spreading many rays of golden light from himself. I was content to see him, but also discontent for not being able to hear the sweetness and gentleness of his creative voice. Then, after much waiting, he returned to let himself be seen, and seeing my discontent, he told me, "My daughter, in my public ministry, the use of my voice is necessary, so as to make myself understood. But in my private ministry, my presence alone is enough for everything. In fact, seeing me and understanding the harmony of my virtues in order to copy them within oneself is all the same. So the attention of the soul must be on seeing me and on conforming in everything to the interior operations of the Word. Because when I draw the soul to myself, it can be said that, at least for the time in which I keep her in my presence, she lives divine life. My light is like the brush with which to paint. My virtues provide the different colors, and the soul is like a canvas, receiving the portrait of the divine image within herself. It happens as to those high bridges. The higher they are, the deeper below them drops a pouring rain. In the same way, before my presence, the soul puts herself in the place that befits her, that is, at the bottom, in her nothingness, so much so as to feel herself being destroyed. And the divinity pours grace in torrents upon her and reaches the point of submerging her within itself. Therefore she must be content with everything, content if I speak, content if I do not speak. While he was saying this, I felt myself as though being submerged in God. And then I found myself inside myself. February 21st, 1902. The speaking of Jesus was simple, so much so that both the learned and the most ignorant could comprehend it. The preachers of these times mix so many loops and quibbles with it that the peoples remain starved and bored. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus made himself seen in my interior, almost in act of resting. But while he seemed to be resting, it seemed like he had received an offense which he could not bear. And as though waking up, he told me, "My daughter, have patience. Let me pour this bitterness into you, for it gives me no rest." And while saying this, he poured what embittered him into me, and assumed his sweet aspect, so as to be able to rest. Then he continued to remain in my interior, spreading many rays of light, in such a way as to form a net of light, to catch all men inside of it. However, some received more of that light, some less. Now, while I was seeing this, our Lord told me, "My beloved, when I keep silent, it is a sign that I want rest. That is, you resting in me, and I in you. When I speak, it is a sign that I want active life. That is, your help in the work of the salvation of souls, because since they are my images, whatever is done for them, I consider as though being done for me." As he was saying this, I saw several priests, and Jesus, as though lamenting to them, added, "My speaking was simple, so much so that both the learned and the most ignorant could comprehend it, as appears clearly in the Holy Gospel. But the preachers of these times mix so many loops and quibbles with it that the peoples remain starved and bored. It shows that they do not draw it from the font of my spring." February 24th, 1902. The Queen Mother, star of the sea on earth, star of light in heaven. More about the law of divorce. As I was in my usual state, the Queen Mother came and told me, "My daughter, my sorrows, as the prophets say, were a sea of sorrows, and in heaven they have turned into a sea of glory, and each of my sorrows has borne the fruit of as many treasures of grace. And just as on earth they call me Star of the Sea, because I guide them to the harbor with certainty, so in heaven they call me Star of Light for all the blessed, because they are delighted by this light that my sorrows produced for me." At that moment, my adorable Jesus came, saying to me, "My beloved, there is nothing more dear and pleasing to me than an upright heart that loves me, and in seeing me suffer, prays me to let her suffer what I suffer. This binds me so much and has so much power over my heart that as recompense, I give her all of myself, and I concede to her the greatest graces and anything she wants. And if I did not do so, having made the donation of myself, I feel that for as many things as I do not give to her, so many thefts do I make from her. That is, so many debts do I contract with her." Afterwards he transported me outside of myself, and Jesus added, "My daughter, there are certain offenses which surpass by far the very offenses I suffered in my passion. Today, in fact, I have received several of these, such that if I did not pour part of them out, my justice would force me to send fierce scourges over the earth. Therefore, let me pour into you." After he poured them, I don't know how, hearing him speak about offenses, I said to him, "Lord, what about this law of divorce that they talk about? Is it certain that they will not confirm it?" And he, "For now it is certain. As for 5, 10, or 20 years from now, if I suspend your state of victim or call you to heaven, they may be able to do it. But the prodigy of chaining their will and of confounding them I have done for now. If you knew the rage of the demons and of those who wanted this law, who were certain to obtain it, it is so great that if they could, they would destroy any authority and would make a slaughter everywhere. So in order to mitigate this rage and to prevent these slaughters in part, do you want to expose yourself to their fury a little bit?" And I, "Yes, as long as you come with me." So we went to a place in which there were demons and people who seemed to be furious, enraged, mad. As soon as they saw me, they ran over me like many wolves, and some would beat me, some would tear my flesh. They would have wanted to destroy me, but did not have the power to do it. As for me, however, though I suffered very much, I did not fear them, because I had Jesus with me. After this, I found myself inside myself, as though filled with various pains. May the Lord be always blessed. March 2nd, 1902. The Effects of Faith. This morning I felt all concerned, as if the Lord wanted to deprive me again of his presence, and therefore take sufferings away from me. And I also felt a little bit of discouragement. Then, after much waiting, he came for just a little and told me, My daughter, one who nourishes himself with faith acquires divine life, and by acquiring divine life he destroys the human. That is, he destroys within himself the germs which original sin produced, reacquiring the perfect nature as it came out of my hands, similar to me. And by this, he comes to surpass in nobility the very angelic nature. Having said this, he disappeared. March 3rd, 1902. Chastisements are necessary. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus was not coming, and I felt myself dying from his absence. Then, around the last hour, moved to compassion for me, he came, and kissing me, told me, "My daughter, it is necessary that sometimes I do not come. Otherwise, how would I give vent to my justice? And men, seeing that I do not chastise them, would do nothing but grow ever bolder. Therefore wars, slaughters are necessary. The beginning and the means will be most painful, but the end will be most merry. Besides, you know that the first thing is resignation to my will." March 5th, 1902. The bad example of the leaders. This morning I found myself outside of myself, and after going around in search of my adorable Jesus, I found him. But to my surprise, I saw that he had many thorns stuck inside his feet, under his soles, which gave him pain and prevented him from walking. All afflicted, he threw himself into my arms, almost wanting to find rest and to have those thorns taken out by me. I clasped him to myself and said to him, "My sweet love, had you come in the past days, you would not have so many thorns stuck inside of you. At the most, as some would stick, so I would have pulled them out. Here is what you have done by not coming." And while saying this, I kept pulling all those thorns out, while blood gushed from the feet of blessed Jesus, and he agonized for the strong pain. After this, as though relieved, he also wanted to pour, and then he told me, "My daughter, what corruption among the peoples! How crooked the paths they follow! But it is the bad example of the leaders that has influenced this, when for one who possesses any slightest authority, a spirit of disinterest must be his light, so as to be distinguished as a leader, and the justice exercised by him must be like a thunderbolt striking the eyes of bystanders, in such a way that they may not be able to move away from him and from his examples." Having said this, he disappeared. March 6, 1902. Jesus is stripped of every principality, of every regime, of every sovereignty. This morning, my adorable Jesus, on coming, made himself seen all naked, as though trying to cover himself in my interior, telling me, "My daughter, they have stripped me of every principality, of every regime, of every sovereignty, and in order to reacquire these rights of mine over creatures, it is necessary that I strip them and almost destroy them. Through this they will recognize that where God is not present as principle, as regime, and as sovereign, everything leads to their own destruction, and therefore to the font of all evils. March 7th, 1902. Before the divine presence, the soul acquires and copies within herself the ways of the divine operating. As I was in my usual state, I saw my loving Jesus for just a little, and he told me, "My daughter, when I draw the soul before my presence, she receives this good of acquiring and copying within herself the ways of the divine operating in such a way that, as she later deals with creatures, they feel within themselves the strength of the divine operating which this soul possesses." After this, I felt a fear about whether the things I do in my interior were pleasing to the Lord or not. And he added, "Why do you fear when your life is grafted with mine? Besides, everything you do in your interior has been infused by me, and many times I myself have done it together with you, suggesting to you how to do it, and the way it would be pleasing to me. Other times I have called the angels, and united together, they have done what you were doing in your interior. This means that I am pleased with what you do, and that I myself have taught it to you. Therefore continue, and do not fear." So I was reassured. March 10th, 1902. The pain of love is more terrible than hell. As I was in my usual state, I felt myself outside of myself, going in search of my adorable Jesus. But I could not find him. I would repeat my searches, my crying, but it was all in vain. Not knowing what else to do, my poor heart agonized and absorbed a pain so sharp that I am unable to explain it. I can only say that I do not know how I was left alive. While I was in this painful situation, though always searching for him, unable to abstain for one moment from making new searches, finally I found him and said to him, "How can you make yourself so cruel with me, Lord? Look a little bit yourself whether these are pains which I can tolerate." And completely exhausted, I abandoned myself into his arms. All compassion for me, and looking at me, Jesus told me, "My beloved daughter, you are right. Calm yourself, for I am with you, and I will not leave you." Poor daughter, how you suffer. The pain of love is more terrible than hell. What is it that tyrannizes one the most? Hell, or an opposed love, a hated love? What can tyrannize a soul more than hell? A love that is loved. If you knew how much I suffer in seeing you tyrannized by this love because of me, so as not to make me suffer so much, you should be more calm when I deprive you of my presence. Imagine yourself, if I suffer so much in seeing one suffer who does not love me and offends me, how much more do I suffer in seeing one who loves me suffer? On hearing this, moved, I said, "Lord, tell me at least whether you want me to try to go out of this state without waiting for the confessor when you do not come." And he added, "No, I do not want you to go out of this state before the confessor comes. Dismiss every fear. I place myself in your interior, holding your hands in mine, and at the contact of my hands, you will know that I am with you. So, when my restlessness for seeing him comes, I feel my hands being clasped by those of Jesus. And in feeling that divine contact, I calm down and I say, "It is true, he is with me." Other times, as the desire to see him comes more strongly, I feel my hands being clasped more tightly by his, and he says to me, "Luisa, my daughter, I am here. I am here. Do not look for me elsewhere." And so it seems that I am more calm. March 12, 1902. Threats of chastisements. I continued to see my adorable Jesus in the same way, that is, in my interior. But I would see him inside of me, giving his back to the world, with a scourge in his hand, in the act of casting it over the creatures. And with this, it seemed that chastisements would happen over the crops and mortality of people. In the act of sending that scourge, he spoke words of threat, among which I can only remember, "I did not want this, but you yourselves have provoked me to exterminate you. Well then, I will exterminate you." Having said this, he disappeared. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 4, Part 12. Fiat. My God, I thank you for your lessons of today. Free me from living one single instant outside of your will. Have pity on me. Do not permit that I either know or acquire any other life except that of your divine will. Fiat et Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.